Go live.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of VC TV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we are here in 2021. I paused for you there just to make sure you were with us. Make sure you've made the transition as well. Coming from 2020, the wild, crazy year that it was, into this new year here in 2021. And today we're going to be talking about machine learning. This is a very important topic coming into this new year because we had such a big discussion and also action around data last year, more than we ever have. We've also collected more data that was relevant, that was used as insights, and was also used in some cases to enhance our products and services. But now let's dive a little deeper. Let's get into the learning process. So how was that data used? Where were the opportunities to invest into that? And what does it mean for the year ahead, but also the decade? We've continued to have this conversation around the decade in front of us. 2020 was a foundational year. It set the stage for a lot of the technologies and industries that we talk about here in VCTV, and also that influence each and every one of our lives. Now, coming into 2021, we're seeing that acceleration. We're only a few days, working days into the year, and we're already seeing wild and crazy aspirations of what this year is going to bring us. So with that, we bring together the best and the brightest for you to hear what's happening in different technologies, industries, and regions around the world, along with their on-the-ground perspective. And if you'd like to be one of those investors, do reach out, and we'd love to find the right spot for you. Entrepreneurs, guess what? It's 2021. It's a new year. You're building a product, you're building a company, you're fundraising, you've got a service to sell. We've got a spot for you here on VCTV, on our virtual stage, for you to pitch that company, product, or service to each of us as investors interested in your area, to get real-time feedback, build relationships, and also get exposure to our entire live community as well. Do reach out to the team and or myself, and we'll find the right spot for you. Speaking of that team, a big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. And if this is your first time joining us, make sure you check out the archive, as well as we have episodes covering a wide variety of industries, technologies, and different topics as well for your viewing pleasure, in case Netflix is getting old for you. So check out the archive. And with that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and dive in today. Today's topic is, again, machine learning, talking about the opportunities and the investments within. Let's start introducing each of our guests. Brett, welcome back to the show along with your special guest. It's a pleasure to see you. A little intro and a little background.
Sure. Kyle, great to see you again. And great to be back on here. Brett Noyes, founder and director of Unventures. We're an early stage investor syndicate, primarily focused on fintech, regtech, and data compliance. I think will be the biggest area that kind of has overlap with our topic today. SMB automation and future of work are areas that we're focused on. And I have my son here, Davis, who will be joining us. And so if I disappear at some point, it might be some parenting duties to be done. So, or muting myself a lot. So having both of us.
Well, and welcome to him. He's already chimed in a little bit pre-show, so we know that he's got a ton of knowledge in this area, and will probably be one of the leading experts in machine learning come here by the end of the episode. So very excited, and welcome back, Brett, as well. Lubna, it's such a pleasure to see you as well. Welcome back. I know this is an area very important to you for so many reasons, but I will let you take on your introduction as well.
Oh, God. Thank you so much for this kind invitation and this lovely introduction, and for the energy that is existing here. I'm Lubna Dajani, and my background is in systems analysis and design. My interest has always been in how technology affects humanity, and how do we, relative to how do we use today AI to extend our own capacity to know who we are, not only physically as physical beings, but also as digital beings. How do we use it to accelerate our ability to move to a place of omniversal well-being, rather than a very short-sighted sort of skiing, looking at your shoelaces. I am relative to investments here. I'm on the advisory board and of the Horizon 2020 Next Generation Internet Trust, and we invest in, well, we give grants in innovations or human-centric internet, with the focus on trust And a lot of the investments are obviously in how do we apply AI to deliver trust.
Wonderful.
I'll stop
And
here
welcome
because
back again.
I can go blah, blah, blah.
No, this is perfect. We talked a little bit about today's subject yesterday with Brett and also Gary in various parts as well, and talking about not just data but also privacy and security and how that is going to be relevant. Because to be very frank, and we talked about this at the end of last year, security is still the most forgotten piece of the puzzle when building any company, product, or service. Still. It's very, very rarely talked about, unfortunately, but it has to be included. So we're going to come back to that. Lubna, welcome, welcome. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, get ready. The one and only, the Grand.
I feel like we're going to the circus.
But I apologize.
He's a ringmaster now. I was going to call you the grandmaster. You're the ringmaster now. I feel like a monkey should be jumping on a trampoline.
We have a little fun here on VCTV, ladies and gentlemen. This is your first time tuning in. We are a family. We talk about a ton of serious stuff, but we like to have a little fun, even when we kick off the new year. And Gary Fowler, welcome back. I mean, AI, ML, this is your world. You live and breathe it. But before I go any further, a little introduction on your side.
Yeah, so thanks for the kind introduction. Anyhow, my name's Gary Fowler, and serial entrepreneur. I've done 17 companies, 2 unicorns. I love artificial intelligence. I am a clinical psychologist too. And so I started a long time ago understanding a bit about the human brain and the way it interacts and reacts. And so it's something of interest. I'm particularly interested in AI. I've written now 107 articles, maybe over 107, and just in the last year, because I keep stepping them up. So I want to keep it up all the time. But I'm writing 2 books in AI. And AI is the new electricity. I mean, the challenge that each and every one of us have today is that we're inundated with data. It's coming at us from all different kinds of ways. And today we're not really able to process the amount of data we have in front of us. We don't even know what email we have. We don't know if we send a PowerPoint presentation. If I sent it 3 weeks ago, I said, do you remember I sent you a PowerPoint presentation? Where did you send it? Well, Messenger, Slack, is it on the Google Drive, Dropbox box? Where is it? So we're in a state of infobesity, and the guiding light of having artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, is that we can develop intelligent assistants to be able to make our lives a lot easier and to help us live longer, to be able to understand the fundamental problems. And we need to do it now, because I believe there are going to be 2 classes of people, the people know and the people that don't know. And we need to keep this democratization of opportunity and democratization that we've had over the last year with digital transformation up. So AIs can be here to help us in machine learning.
And speaking of that, it's a great transition. Thank you, Gary. But for Brett, Lubna, and Gary, all 3 of you, I mean, with that transition, I mean, we are moving into a more digital age. We spoke a little bit about this again earlier this week, is that we're living our lives physically, and then we've kind of been in this limbo of physical and digital, but we are definitely moving to this digital only almost complete life. And with that, there is so much data that's going to be created or has been created, and that now needs to be applied. And when applied, it has to adjust, it has to learn, and not to be such a play of on words of machine learning. But let's talk about what this means. I mean, as we look at our lives going here into 2021, how does machine learning, data, and artificial intelligence really play a role in the future of what we're looking at here in the next year ahead? And Brett, I'm going to kick it off with you, and then we'll go around.
Yeah, I'm going to kick it back to Gary. I'd love to get his thoughts on that first. I think it's a very expansive subject, so I'd love to kind of get Gary's thoughts, and then happy to contribute a little bit, but yeah.
Love it. Gary, throwing it back to you from Brett there. So start us off.
Whoa, I got it.
What does this all look like?
Well, I was loving what you were saying about AI to do electricity, and I'd love for you to dive more into
sure.
that.
I mean,
let's maybe kind of see where things roll out from there. If Kyle doesn't mind, I don't want to steal Kyle's show here. So
no. We're all a team here. Let's do that. I think that's a great starting point. And actually, after that, I'm going to come to Lubna and Brett. I'm going to save you for last. I've got a feeling where this might go. So, Gary, kick us off.
Yeah, I mean, look at it where we are, Brett. We're at the beginning of the 20th century in terms of AI. And imagine what happened after alternating current, Nikola Tesla, Niagara Falls, how much our lives changed over the next 30 years. We had fundamental changes. The farmers came into the urban environment, manufacturing, revolutions took place in terms of manufacturing. I mean, literally, our lives changed. We went from oil powered lights to electric lights. It changed everything, and we're at that point now. Quite frankly, I used to say just a new electricity, but I believe it's even different than that. It's really exponential growth when you start add quantum computing to it. So our lives are going to change. We're going to live longer. A few years ago, Brett, I was involved in a paper. I didn't write it myself. I had my MBA students. I coached them, shall we say. But anyhow, we put together a project called Living to 120 at the time. And look at where we are today. Look at what happened just with COVID and Pfizer. They developed the vaccine. Part of the development was done in IBM Watson. So it's not just about bench time, which takes a long time. It's about models. The beauty about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning is that our lives, we can process so much data. And as Kyle, has said, there's about 40 zettabytes of data that's around the world today. That's enough to take CDs or DVDs, stack one on top of another 29 times back and forth to the moon. It's grown at 61.7% per year, right? So there's a tremendous amount of data. Look at your own personal world. Each one of us here has about 300,000 items in your own personal cloud. Google Drive, Dropbox, Box, Slack, Telegram, WhatsApp, Viber, everywhere. How many email addresses? 5 to 7 email addresses. So if I say, I sent you something, did you look at it? What do you say first? Where did you send it? Didn't happen 5 years ago, did it? Right? It's changed. The reason is we're inundated. The amount of information that we all have to deal with is 300,000 items today. That number in the next 5 years will be 10 million. How in the world, in our own personal environment, right? In fact, the entire World Wide Web only had 257,000 websites in 1996. That's it. We are bigger. Your own personal web, your own personal world is bigger than the entire web in 1996. So, and doubling every year now with the Internet of Things. So we are in a state of, Alvin Toffler said in a book written many years ago, but it was called, he said, infobesity. And that's where we are today. So we need to cure it. And AI is one of the cures for infobesity. The reason I liken it to the beginning of the 20th century is because electricity fundamentally changed our lives, and AI is doing it now. And people don't even, I mean, look, we go on Google. Look, we're on Zoom, right? When I first got on Zoom, people said, why would you use it? Well, because it's an AI enhanced, the picture's a lot better. The quality of the voice is a lot better, and it changed things. Now they're 400 million users, and he's worth $20 billion. Yeah, 5 years. So we have shifted. And the beauty about it is that because of COVID, we've had to now make another fundamental transition, which is to the digital transformation. It's really helped speed us along, and AI can help.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I could spend another rest of the day on the topic, and I don't want to, because I love this stuff. But let's just say that this is a renaissance of humanity happening right now. We need to reach out to the stars. There's 6 billion planets like Earth just in the Milky Way galaxy, and estimated at 200 trillion galaxies, right? And I'm having your friend Christopher Altman, the astronaut, who I met here, by the way, on my show. And it's just, we have so much to explore. So many things are out there and it's a renaissance time for humanity, and we need to grasp it. We need to help make the world a better place. We need to be a little bit kinder and gentler. And that's why, adding compassion and emotion to artificial intelligence, so we're not just pragmatic, is critically important.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the one thing we have to think about is how much the human mind can absorb. And there's, like you said, the infobesity or whatever that term was. I think we're all feeling that fatigue, and we need to really be thinking about how AI could narrow that down, just because we can theoretically consume all this doesn't mean that we should, whether it's a good amount of use of our time. And I think that like everyone that, is dealing with that on a daily basis and honestly burning out quickly, trying to keep up with it.
Exactly. And think about how you feel now compared to how you felt 2 years ago. I mean, how many times, just think about it. How many times do you pick up your phone and check your email every day? Seriously, right? 50, 100 times? What do you do when you get up in the morning, Brett? What's the first thing you do?
Yeah. Check the email and check the social, right? So
Exactly. And how long does it go before you check it again? I'm
minutes.
not, it's crazy,
But
right?
real quick,
It is.
Gary,
We're addicted, and like, I don't know. It's just like
what's interesting, I just want to throw in there, what's interesting is that most people actually don't know or realize how many times, because it's become a habit. So it's actually become second nature to that. And Brett, to the point of Gary's around infobesity, and then I want to come to Lubna here in just a second. I mean, you're right. This is also what's a big conversation topic around Gen Z and the millennial generation as they're looking at new products and services being created for that target demographic, is that they have been classified as the burnout generation due to, in part, the amount of influx of information. And you're right, we can't condense it all. And if anything, we're overloaded and unsure of what to consume and what not, as well as,
Yeah, we can come back to this, but I'd really love to talk about like, how do you manage the present and future workforce? It's really kind of the areas where I'm thinking about, because I think about this from my wife, and we can go over to Lubna. Let's circle back to that.
Let's go into it.
You can go into anything you want.
I mean,
I got hold on. We got Zoom delay here, so all good. I've got a great question for Lubna, but let's actually go into the future work for a second, because you're already on it, Brett. Tell us how this may apply, or how you're thinking about it from a future work and perspective.
In my own, life / in my own home, my wife works for DocuSign, and she's on, Zoom meetings from 8:30 till 5 o'clock every single day, and just exhausted. And it sounds silly to say that you're like, oh, it's like you're sitting there just watching a screen. Why are you exhausted? Why is this having this mental fatigue? Like, it's a real thing. And I asked her, I said, like, is your company even looking at the data of like, how are they managing you? Do they ever, like she says, well, do they, what about the culture? And, how do you manage that culture? And she's like, well, they have Zoom, happy hours right now. It's like, and she says, the last thing I want to do at the end of the day after being on 8 hours of Zoom is to spend an hour of my, time. So I think that, this is happening systematically from small companies to big companies and anybody that's, running remote teams. And I think that like AI is one of these areas where it could be kind of looking at, how much we have to really start to be thinking about like how much time are our employees on Zoom, on, at work versus other stuff. Because if we don't manage, it seems like we shouldn't have to manage their whole life, but if we're not thinking about, are they happy person? Like the way that I manage my team is every time at our team meeting, I ask them, did you get out? Did you do something? Did you get some fresh air today? Did you go to the gym or something of that nature? Like, are you having interactions with people outside of, your apartment, right? Because it's like, I don't see them every day, and I don't have any sort of eyes on their mental health. And I think if we don't think about that, the burnout's going to be so high, and like the churn on people is going to be so high. I think it's just really, it's going to be it's going to be more economical to start managing your employees in a different way than we've done before.
Well, and before Gary throws in a short little plug, because I know he's got a company, but real quick, one interesting fact about that you brought up, and Lubna, I'm tossing it right over to you after this, so apologies. One interesting fact, so 8 to 5 Zoom, it's a great thing. So mental health and fatigue is one part of it. What about information? If you're sitting there just listening and talking, and you're just sitting there viewing a screen, there is actually a deprecation of just general mind share that's happening during that time. So you're actually just losing thought. But are you consuming anything? And if you're consuming, what happens to all that data of the consumption? So we're sitting here talking, right? Is there anything being, transcribed so that we can be, go back and review it? Is there anything that's being done to continue that conversation? There's another part of that with future of work as well, which I know is being done around Zoom apps and a few of these other new areas of opportunity going into this year for those investors who may be tuning in. But that's also another opportunity, is if we're living our digital lives, help us live them, help us be efficient in those as well. And so Lubna, I want to switch over to you.
Hmm. Well, we covered a lot of areas. The good news, let's see my memory. If you want to list them, we can go, and I'd love to respond to each of them
So let's start.
individually if you like.
Yeah, if we can, let's
But
start backwards and go
the good
forward.
news for there's an well, yeah, there is a talk about the impact of technology at large. Although this particular, as I said to you in the beginning, that's my area of personal passion. Um, so there's IEEE standard 7010 because it was born in 2020, completed, published. And that's the assessment, recommended practice on the assessment of the impact of AI and autonomous systems on happiness and human happiness and well-being. In general, and there's the whole series of the whole family of the 7,000 family of IEEE standard work cover many areas. Another one is the 7014, which is still a P7014 as opposed to a standard 7014. It's still in progress. It is about empathic technologies and how do we apply empathic AI and into how to ensure ethical implementation of empathic technologies and ethical explainability of any an AI system or an autonomous system that we're putting in place. So the good news is there's lots of work on that. There's also lots of work being done at a different level at all the bodies, which is also very good. But also at W3C in terms of cognitive AI and modeling AI systems following cognition, and a lot on privacy and interests and groups and how do we ensure privacy in data. There's also in both industries and standards and also in ISO. So there's a lot of work that's being done and it's important work around ethical, and which when marrying it to the work in B Corp work and how do we move our thinking from economics and environment and governance to a more, well, I say it needs to be, as you know, regenerative so we can have sustainable well-being. So on all these fronts, there's a lot of good work that's being done. Now, what else did we talk about? Lots.
We talked about the future work. We talked about the general impact that data and the consumption of data
Right.
along with the training of data will have on our year. And then I have a question for you.
So we talked to, remember, my company, Alternet was created initially as a paper I wrote for a book on the role of enterprise in future cities. And Alternet is about when all people, places, and environments are connected, aware, and addressable and accountable, and what happens then. And the big question in that paper was, with all that data that's being generated, not just by you, but about the networks and up and down the layers of technology to establish that connection and every link on the value chain. What do you want to do with it? How do you want, what role do you want to play in your own life and in your own? That's why I moved focus to security in my career and to embedded technology, embedded security, hardware roots of trust, and identity. And how do you establish and maintain authenticity in anything that you're doing or that you're consuming over the digital channel? So the future of work point, I just want to go back to briefly, is I think the most important thing that we can do there is not just focus on the technology and what role is it, but to shift our focus from the future of work to the future of the worker. It's really about the people and it's not about the work. We need to decouple what needs to be the work that needs to be done from the people and how we, the people that are the living people, together with the plants and the animals and the whole life as it is, what kind of life we want to live, and then what systems, autonomous or otherwise, that we can put in place to enable that quality of life. What else?
Absolutely. And
that
then
is a very good point. I like that. to really start
Absolutely.
thinking about future work from the people side versus the work.
Right. I mean,
Future-
efficiency goes to the level of the person, not necessarily to the work itself, right? If the person's efficient, the person is happy, the person's well-being is taken care of as well, the person's security and happiness is again handled, then the work can be completed. So sorry, Brett, continue.
To all the points you were making about when, as you're watching your wife go through, Zoom fatigue, and diminishing points of return in terms of productivity and creativity. But the good news about it, it's unlocked we no longer have the blinders thinking the ways we did it are the ways. And look at you're carrying your son. This is fantastic. I mean, there it is. It's about what really matters, which is really cool, but makes me, what I love about Gary's company's name. Ta-da! What is
Get
it again?
stuff done. Get stuff done, because we have a special guest on our show today. So get stuff done, Gary. I will censor it for this one time and this one time.
It's nothing he hasn't heard.
There you go. We'll be semi-appropriate today, but to your point. So let's take it one step further. Our lives are digital, using Brett's example of his wife's 8 to 5 Zoom days. Gary's as well, around how we're being inundated with info obesity. Looking at the year ahead, security, privacy, digital life is not going away anytime soon. As I said, it's probably going to get more aggressive in the next couple months and over the next year. Should we be thinking about privacy, or where should we be thinking about privacy that we're not currently?
Well, yeah, it's really, what do you want to be private, and what does private mean anyway to you? So at what level do you want me to answer this question? Philosophically, spiritually, or on technology? Technology, we better be, we can apply all the technology, but I think as long as we're in the loop, there's always a way to break trust, to invade privacy. So we really need to step back and rethink our own fundamental moral compass. Where do we want to place value? How do we want to measure value? And what does privacy mean to us individually, as a society, and as a
aspect of this is legislation. I think a piece of this that's going to emerge is where the government steps in, because I think big tech has kind of been able to run free for the last decade, and I think it's starting to come up against different new emerging legislation, because I don't know that it's the consumer, us as consumers or users necessarily our obligation to figure out what we want to share. I feel like at some level there needs to be some sort of regulation around what is allowed and how that data is used. And then if you're an entrepreneur, I think you really need to think about, like, I think you said something to the effect of, where's your moral compass? Because there's, as Gary's talking about, there's all this data, this massive amount of data that's being collected, and you can do either good or bad with it, right? And I feel like there's a lot of kind of moral issues that are, the subset of all this.
So it's our economic models. Where do we place value? What do we reward? What behaviors? Right now, there's fiduciary responsibility for shareholder, not stakeholder. What matters is making money. It doesn't matter what trail we leave behind, and that fundamental mindset has to change. For me, I talk about, we need to stop thinking about vertical wealth accumulation and move to horizontal wealth creation. If you were the richest man because you were the man that enabled that many more people to be sustainably prosperous, and for everyone that you have enabled to be sustainably prosperous, you have a token of their loyalty, of whatever it is that they have that you can cash in. Holy beep.
Holy wow. With that being said, I want to switch gears real quick for us. This is a great discussion, but I want to pause this here. Let's look at now we're here in the year. We've talked about a few different areas, from future of work to AI and ML, just in general, to security and privacy, to the future of us as individuals and our well-being as investors. Since that's what we talk about here on VCTV, where are the opportunities? Where should we be looking at to put money to work? And then also, where should we be looking at as opportunities to start building in as well, right? So either as investors putting capital to work, or again, as entrepreneurs looking to build in some of those gap areas. Gary, I'm going to start with you.
Well, first of all, yeah. So, Brett, I actually founded one of the top companies addressing the exact issue that you described. So we are, that's one of the unicorns that I started 5 years ago. And I sent you over some information so you can take a look at it. But that's what we do. And you're right. We did the future work before the pandemic, because I said, well, managing remote teams is going to be really important. We didn't understand how important. So once the pandemic stopped, the inbound interest was 38x up. So anyhow, I sent it over. If you want to take a look at it, I can set it up for you. No problem. Anyhow, in terms of the opportunity, I mean, it's really, but think about it. We talk about the supply chain. The supply chain's screwed up. You know, we laugh about it, Kyle. Well, you can't get toilet paper in California, right? It's like, okay, so we talk about quantum computers, but the supply chain's broken. We need to fix the supply chain. Food, we're at the beginning of the pandemic. Even today, there's challenges with the food supply. We've got to go down through and fix it. Having artificial intelligence and the transparency will help us. Farming, being able to driverless tractors, being able to go out and put Internet of Things so we can analyze the data to figure out what we need to do for those particular fields, what kind of chemicals, what kind of organic compounds we need to put in, how much water, right? Gene splitting, genome. I've written articles about each one of these areas, but think about it. I mean, if we can go out and cut out the bad cancer gene in each one of us and not snip it too short or too long, imagine what that does for our lifespan. It dramatically increases our lifespan. Drug discovery. I just did a presentation a few weeks ago to the top pharmaceutical companies in Europe. What is the thing? They need to reduce bench time, right? And they didn't want to do it before because you got these, MDs and PhD researchers that are doing the work, and they didn't really want to use the modeling. Well, guess what? Coronavirus forced them to do it, and now we got vaccines coming out. So there, look at, driverless cars, all the data that a car needs to be able to have to make the right kind of decisions. Space, you're going to Mars, but if the European Space Agency came up with an intelligent assistant to go up to understand what your mental health is, how your health is, to be, you're taking a 1-year journey in a small box. And you need to be able to understand what's happening with that individual. What about satellites? The amount of satellites that are out there. What about asteroids, objects coming to Earth, to analyze what they are, what kind of compounds, are they a threat or not? So literally, it's now with the challenge with COVID and education, having a more immersive educational experience. It's one thing to have Zoom. It's another thing to figure out, are they listening or not, right? Mm-hmm. And do we gamify it or not? Is it immersive or not? So when we talk about AI, that's why I say it's like the new electricity, because literally those same models, these transportable, and I wrote an article about that too, transportable AI models. It's about the training set. They can move from this vertical market to that vertical market to this one. So we're in the dawn of a new age. The key is we need to do something about it. We have, and by the way, I mean, this is not like a new topic. I mean, everybody here uses Google and Facebook. I mean, hello, AI is all around us, machine learning and deep learning every single day of our lives. Look, you get on Amazon. It's not just by coincidence you happen to get something that could be interesting to you coming up next. It's because they understand your patterns. Then when you go in and sign in with Facebook, what do you think's happening, right? Hello, they're going to start, now you get cross-market, cross-selling. They say Facebook, actually I met with Facebook one time, and he said they only look at certain parts of your face, but you use artificial intelligence on faces and figure out where people are and start tying it together. You can pretty much come up with what's going to happen, right? In their lives. You can actually, I've heard that, and I won't quote anybody, but they can tell when you're going to die, that within a certain range. So, I mean, there's a lot of.
All of us are like, whoa, 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 whoa.
All right,
We went
now.
too far with the data.
I don't want to say Facebook, but one of the groups, right? And so what we have is we've got, and at the same time, we've got the challenges on the planet Earth. We're polluting the planet. The population's quadrupled in the last 100 years, estimated to go up to 13 billion within the next 100 years. At the same time, where the polar ice caps are melting, the average temperature is going up 1 degree since 1880. 1 degree. That's not a big deal. It's a huge deal because in another 100 years, it could be up as much as 2 feet in Florida. 2 feet on the beaches in Florida. Most of the coasts are underwater, and many of the coastal cities around the world. And the Gulf Stream slows down, and the food supply starts to decrease. Right? So we've got some real serious challenges ahead of us, and we better start being intelligent about it.
Yes, which means for those that are listening, there are tons of opportunity here. As Gary pointed out, many of them. Brett and Lubna, I want to come to you as well on this area. So area of opportunity. I mean, Brett, you're focused on the future of work, RegTech, FinTech, but in terms of today's topic, and maybe, highlight a few of those as well, where specifically, thank you, Gary, by the way, where specifically are you seeing areas of opportunity to invest and to build upon here over the next 12 months?
Well, it becomes quite challenging to follow Gary because he covered every aspect, and apparently he's already launched a company that's a unicorn in the space. But I'll kind of just reiterate that, like the area that I think, that just in general, like the workforce is changing. I love what Luca said about, focusing on the worker and their health. So I think anything that kind of focuses on that area, there's big, massive opportunity in those kind of the areas that we'll be looking into this year. And that could take on many different forms and fashions. Like reiterating what Gary's saying, I mean, just so many different problems and so many different sectors to be solved. Like from a, kind of an entrepreneur and inventor standpoint, like we've just got a whole slew of new problems and new opportunities out there. So.
I love it. Tons of excitement for the year ahead. And with that, Lubna, to you, I know you have a few that probably have not been mentioned. So areas of opportunity.
Well, I always say that my interest is up and down the stack of technology, and actually an AI can be an added support to in any layer. And it's a horizontal enabler, so it applies to any vertical. That's why the list is endless, because it applies in application. It applies to any aspect of life in many verticals. You name it, I'll say yes, because it is holistically impactful. But there are where I would find more interesting than when companies that are combining innovations. So it's AI on top of knowledge base graph, on top of distributed, on top of nano, it's when you stack them and apply them relative to a particular vertical, be it, in architecture and housing. So I love the idea of floating homes that apply, not enable you to live on water, because we're probably going to have more of it, which makes me, you got to make something good out of it. And I just love water anyway. So how do we make it good? How do we use technology to clean the swamps that are, that are beneath the home, so that it turns the swamp, turns it maybe into energy. So invite innovations around that kind of implementations that regenerate society, regenerate the planet, regenerate the people, at the same time create, obviously, financial reward. If that's where you place your value. So there are technologies now within AI, particularly a lot about how you label the data and finding biases and whose ethics and what ethics. So there will be also lots of investments that you can look at around there if your interest is in the specific enabling technologies and how they integrate. Ontologies, taxonomies, making it easy to actually create interoperability so you can share the knowledge and the deep learning so you can cross-pollinate of hyper-focused area. Because as you know, deep learning and machine learning, it's not as intelligent independently. It's not general intelligence.
Right, and not yet. And before, as we come to close here, I actually want to get each of your closing thoughts. So what do you see for the future ahead here in the next year? Anything else you want to put out there around machine learning and data that people need to be aware of? And then, of course, where you can be found online. And Brett, let's kick it off with you as well. So your closing thoughts and anything else you want to talk about for, or briefly throw to the audience of what's to come here in 2021 around some of the areas you're focused on, and then where can they find you?
Yeah, just some quick thoughts. I mean, I think we talk about the future of work, but we're at the present of work, I think. So the future has come quicker than we thought. So there's, and it's creating a series of problems every single day. And then, there's this massive amount of data that we could do more and better things with. So I'd really be thinking about, how to harness that to solve big problems probably within big organizations, and then be thinking about how that could trickle into smaller, organizations, because they're going to have the same problems, but probably kind of delayed. So those are kind of the areas that I'm interested in as we look at 2021. And the other piece I'll just throw out there is, be ethical. Like there's good and bad ways to use these tools, AIs, machine learning. And like we've seen some bad use cases. So like hopefully the next generation of entrepreneurs will have a kind of a different ethical ethos. And where you can find me, brnoise@unventures.co, Twitter at Brett Noise, and LinkedIn, same Brett Noise.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brett. Gary, to you.
Yeah, sure. So as I've said, this is really a dawn of a new era, and there are incredible opportunities out there. So I encourage startups around the world. And because of VCTV, Kyle, then I get calls from Africa, from Australia, all over, everywhere, literally everywhere. And I see incredible companies that now have a chance to go global because they're listening, they understand, and they see an opportunity out there. So it's really, really cool. AI is the new electricity. Quantum computing is going to change everything. And I've got several articles because of our conversations on quantum networks and AI and quantum and drug discovery, quantum AI and drug discovery, just a lot. Because these are technologies going to fundamentally change our lives, fundamentally help us live a lot longer and give us guidance. And I remember there's an old movie called Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And I remember when the cup of Christ was there, and Sean Connery says to Harrison Ford, "Son, choose wisely," right? So we better make sure that we're choosing wisely and we're doing the right things, and we're building compassion into these systems and treating them the right way. Kyle, I just saw a few weeks ago, there was a guy who was kicking a dog robot, and it was the first time that I've actually felt sad for that. And we had better, be careful what happens, right? You start kicking it when it doesn't have the right kind of intelligence, and when it does, it might bite you.
That is very, very true.
So we need to treat these systems the right way, and it's a whole new journey on what humanity is really, and what kindness and compassion and pragmatism are, and we need to make sure we're making the right choices. You can reach me, Gary Fowler, on LinkedIn. I have my show today where I highlight top startups from around the world called Gary's Picks, VC Task Force. Tune in and reach out. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks, Kyle.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gary, as well. And Lubna, close us out.
Well, Thank you for the time today. So I think, you know, innovation can happen everywhere. Innovation is everywhere. And it is actually, we all have it. And I think each and every one of us, no matter what your background or your capabilities are, have an opportunity and really like an obligation, like you have like you should vote, you should engage to the extent of your ability. The decisions we make today will frame the choices we have tomorrow. So it will take each and every one of us to choose for well-being, to choose to see our best interest in that of the community around us. Because, you know, there's a reason why they say, don't shit where you eat. So let's stop trashing each other. If everybody on this in this Zoom had a long face, nobody would feel good. But if we can help lift each other, we can. And that in terms of investments, in terms of friendships, and in terms of judgment and lack thereof. So free yourself, I say, and make it a happy day, and a happy life will come. I'm Lubna
Absolutely.
Dajani. You can find me here or anywhere else at Lubna Dajani. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lumna. That was a great way to close us out. And also, Brett, Gary, thank you for your thoughts and insights as well today. And to your audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up, check out the archive as well to hear more from Lubna, Brett, Gary, and all of our speakers here from around the world on the VCTV platform, but also the VCTV family as well. And also, if you'd like to be on a show like today, do reach out. And thank you, Lubna and Brett and Gary. If you'd like to be on a show like today and joining Brett, Lubna, and Gary and others, do reach out. We'd love to find the right spot for you to speak about different technologies, industries, and regions around the world to get your on-the-ground perspective, thoughts, and insights as well. And entrepreneurs, again, what better way to start the year than joining us on the virtual stage we have here at VCTV to pitch your company, product, or service, get real-time feedback and exposure to the entire VCTV community as well. And last but not least, the team. Big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. And again, check out the archive for all episodes and a wild, crazy summary of what happened last year in 2020 and more of what's to come here in 2021 as well. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott, along with all social media platforms, as our speakers have mentioned as well. Make sure you do add context as you reach out, where you heard us, where you met us, and what you would like the conversation to do in continuation. With that, we'll be back here in just a short little break with more VCTV. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.